Hi everybody, Paul Haywood here. What you do in your practice time and how you do it are the biggest influences on how quickly you'll improve on your instrument. In this video I'm going to share with you the secrets of how to practice, helping you to improve faster. If you put these things into action, I'm sure that you're going to see a serious increase in how much improvement you get from your practice sessions. This will directly increase how much you can progress and achieve on your instrument. So there might be some of these concepts that you're already aware of, but I hope that there's some new things here and also perhaps some new insights into why everything I explain here is so important and will make such a big difference. I'd just like to say a really big thank you to my Patreon patrons for supporting the channel and helping me to make videos like this for you guys. Okay, so firstly, practice regularly. Work out a time that works for you and build it into a habit. Just like working out, we're building mind-body connections, muscle skill, dexterity, fine motor skills, and all of these things need regular work in every discipline. Okay, so I want you to work out two things. Firstly, how long you're going to practice for. And now you need to stick to this. You can always practice for longer if you want, but the most important thing is that you have a set time that you're going to practice for and you stick to that, at least that, every time you practice. You can always practice longer, but remember that if you practice longer one session, that's not an excuse to not do your regular practice next time. Okay, next you need to decide how often you're going to practice. So that could be 3 times a week all the way up to every day, or even 2 sessions a day. But you do need to be realistic. There's no point deciding that you're going to do 4 hours a day every single day and not be able to stick to it. So be realistic about how long you're going to practice, how regularly you're going to practice, so you've got something you can actually stick to. You can always do more, but you need to have a basic minimum decided that you can really try and stick to, and 99% of the time actually achieve that. Okay, so tip number 2 is to make sure that you've got a plan about what you're actually going to spend your time practicing. So this is where we'll need another video to talk specifically about structuring your practice session, what to practice to achieve your own personal goals, and make sure we're covering all the bases with general instrument fluency and dexterity. So we will cover that in the next part in this series, and also I've got lots of specific exercises to share with you for each aspect that we'll decide in those future videos. So let me tell you why it's so important to have a plan. The mind remembers things for 2 main reasons. The first reason is a strong emotional reaction. So that can be happy, sad, positive and negative emotions of any sort. And what happens is when you feel that strong emotion, your memory will cement what was happening around you, so the experience you were having, the reasons why you were feeling like that, and it will hold those as a memory, and you'll find that you can remember those experiences for years to come. Now obviously that's not particularly useful for us, apart from possibly if you're in a performance situation, you have real feelings of elation about performing, or really negative emotions about what's happening when you're performing, and that could help you to remember certain aspects of what you were doing, maybe the skills that you were using at the time. But the second thing that triggers the brain to see something as important enough to retain that information is repetition. Now this is obviously a lot more useful to us because it's something that we can implement in our practice sessions. Think of it this way. The brain doesn't want to have to work everything out fresh every time you do something. So by doing something every day, or regularly at least, the brain can see that thing that you're doing as being an important thing. It basically says, oh, this is something we're doing every day. I don't want to have to work this out fresh every time, so I'll get better at doing it. And it builds those memories, so it's got that information to hand nice and quick for you. So that's why we really need to have a plan in place, so we can make sure we're actually going over the same skills repeatedly, so we remember and retain the information in our brains effectively. Okay, so I want you to make sure that you're using a metronome in your practice sessions. It doesn't necessarily have to be for everything you play in practice, but I mean, I use it personally for the majority of things that I'm not playing along to actual music for. What you do is you play your scales or your exercises, patterns, phrases, whatever you're working on. You play it along to the metronome, and then every session you just gradually increase that by 5-10 beats a minute, or even if you're stuck at a plateau or moving a little bit slowly through it, something really tricky, just 1 or 2 beats per minute moving forward can help you see that you're progressing, even if it's gradually, and keep your motivation high, which is one of the most important things to keep you practicing regularly. And of course, as well as keeping you progressing, it's actually going to increase your precision and improve your timing. So in conjunction with using a metronome, I want you to keep a record of your practice sessions. Keeping a record of what you're working on and your progress is a really effective method to keep you progressing in any discipline. Use it to write out what you're working on, even how you're feeling about what you're working on. But the main thing we're going to do is have what you're working on and then keep those metronome tempos written down. Keep a record of them as they're progressing, so you can really see yourself moving forward. You know where you're working with that exercise or pattern or phrase or anything. If you ever come back to it, which you should do, we'll look at it in a minute. But it'll just keep you progressing forward, keep your momentum up, keep your motivation up, and it just means that you're always moving forward. Okay, so the next thing is to revisit skills. Revisiting skills is a really essential thing to do, really, because you can be working on, and I don't necessarily mean practice exactly the same thing, but say for example, you've learnt your major scales, okay, and you've got every major scale for an octave or across your full range of your instrument or something for 100 beats per minute, and you're like, yeah, I've got that. Now you're going to move on and work on something else. Maybe you work on your minor pentatonics, then you work on something else, some nice transcription work, anything you like. But then it's time to come back round to those major scales. So next time you come back to them, you can say, well, this time I'm going to maybe push the tempo a little bit up on it, or I'm going to work on those major scales, doing them in patterns. All right, so you work on those for a while, build them up, and then you can head on round the other things you were working on, pentatonics, transcriptions. I will help you decide what we're going to actually work on in the next video. And then we come around again, and this time we're going to push the speeds a bit more. We've got perhaps introduce some different patterns. Head on round again, some different skills, come back to your major scales. This time we're starting to build some pretty good speed, and we're like, right, now I need to be able to shift from one major scale to another, because you're starting to work with tunes where the key center is shifting, or you're starting to improvise over changes where the tonality is changing. So you're actually having to develop fluency through the scales, but actually now fluency to change through them to go with the harmony. Now this is called doing a spiral syllabus, where you go around a set of skills and each time you develop them and head around and come back again. It's another level of repetition where we keep saying to the brain those skills are still important and develop them further. So as well, you can see why keeping a record of what we're working on is so important, so we can go straight to that, see where we were, and move on from it. Okay, so the next tip is to record yourself, whether it's audio or video with audio. To be honest, video with audio is great because you can actually check your technique, your posture, your fingers, hand positions, everything, as well as hear what you're doing. You can record yourself every practice session, or perhaps just once a week or every couple of weeks. And the reason we're going to do this is so you can identify your own strengths and weaknesses. You can hear yourself so much more honestly and more truthfully when you listen to a recording. It's really hard to hear yourself properly when you're actually playing. So you might be able to stand in front of a wall to get to hear your tone better or whatever, but there's so much going on in your mind, there's so much concentrating on what you're doing, you're not necessarily able to really hear and focus in on the result of what you're doing. Okay, so with that in mind, my next tip is to actually be kind to yourself rather than negatively critical. So we want constructive criticism, listening to what's improving as well as listening out for what needs more work. Listen out for the good things and let yourself be encouraged when you hear them. So my next tip for increasing your productivity and development on the instrument is to stay calm and relaxed whilst you play. In one of my recent videos that I will link in the description, I show you a breathing exercise, a short breathing exercise that can really help you stay focused and calm and relaxed in your practice sessions. I recommend that you check that out if you haven't already. The reason it's so important to be relaxed and calm whilst you play is because having any tension in your mind will affect your body. And not only will the tension in your mind distract you from what you're actually trying to focus mentally on, the tension can go down into your body and affect your hands and just get a feedback loop of feeling tense. It can really interfere with the dexterity you've got in your fingers. So tension is a real enemy of fine motor skills. So if you're trying to get fluent and dexterous on the fingers, that body tension is going to get in the way. And the quickest way to affect that body tension is to calm the mind. And one of the most effective ways of calming the mind is through breathing exercises. So check out that video and see if that helps you with that. But definitely try and stay calm and relaxed. If you find yourself getting worked up, either take a short break or do my breathing exercise and see if that works for you. So we need to look at what you're actually going to spend your time practicing. And the next video in this series is going to be exactly that. We're going to look in real detail about what to practice on the instrument. And the reason we need another video for that is because we need to cover quite a lot of bases. We need to look at general saxophone skills that right across the board, as well as achieving your own personal goals. So there's going to be parts of that where I share some universal skills that you should be working on, but also some things that you can tailor, you know, so the style of music you want to be working on, whether you want to be doing more improvising, more playing by ear, more reading sheet music. There's different sets of skills that will apply to all of that, but also skills that will be separate to kind of zone in on those particular areas of learning to play the saxophone. But for now, apply these tips to whatever it is you're currently practicing, and I'm sure that you'll see an increase in how fast you improve. I'm really interested to find out which of these strategies you guys already use in your practice time and which ones are new to you. I know that there are probably some that you're perhaps aware of, but I hope that the video has shown you some new things to be aware of and also explained in a bit more detail why all of these things are so important. Don't forget that you're welcome to leave me a comment with a question in. Anything that you want to know about general saxophone playing that you will need an answer on, I will always try and respond as quickly as I can to that. And if the question needs a bit of a complicated, long-winded answer, I will try and give you a brief summary and basically add your question to my list of growing videos that I want to make for you guys. So I can plan out giving a thorough explanation, because I figure if one of you's got a question that you're going to drop in the comments, it's likely that several more of you are wondering the same thing, so I'm going to try and cover that. Don't forget, we've got the next part in this series, which is going to be what to practice on the saxophone, so make sure you're tuned in for that one. I really hope you found this video helpful. If you have, remember to drop me a thumbs up. It means a lot to me, and it does help YouTube to realise that you're enjoying the content and it gets put in front of some more people, which would be great. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.